Hello, hello, hello. How are you today? Welcome to this Microsoft webinar hosted by Glasspaper. My name is Alex de Jong. I am a Microsoft certified trainer. I am based in the Netherlands and I am here today to talk to you about Microsoft 365 and more specifically Copilot for Microsoft 365. The goal of today's session is to get ready for Copilot for Microsoft 365. So this means that we are going to go and discuss first of all what Copilot is, what has ChatGPT to do with this. Also, I will be answering the biggest questions that we all have for centuries already. What is the biggest difference between men and women? And we will be going through a lot of demos on how Copilot works. So hopefully you will find the next 2 hours informative. This is a live webinar, so if you are watching this, it's part of the session is yours, which means that if you have any questions, then in the Q&A section of the webinar tool that we're using, you can drop your questions. There is also a chat function, but I will not be monitoring the chat. The Q&A window would be good enough for now, at least for me to monitor. So if you have any questions, please drop them over there. Now, hopefully you have all found yourself a nice seat and a nice screen to watch this webinar. Maybe you have some drinks with that or some refreshments, because we will be running this webinar for 2 hours straight, no breaks. So hopefully, you are in a good place to make sure that you have been that you're able to follow this webinar properly. One of the things that I want to mention before we get started, here I have a little website that I'm running. This is my own website, the moab.ms, short for the mother of all portals. If you are attending one of my courses, for example, at Glasspaper in Norway, then what you'll see is that very often I will direct my students into this website, because this is where I, for example, share interesting links that are useful for the courses I'm delivering. For today's webinar, I have created a web page as part of my Moab website. If you go for moab.ms and then /Intune, this is where you will be able to check out, not Intune, sorry. Man, see, I've been teaching Intune for the last few days. That's why Intune is still in my brain. But here we are. If you go into moab.ms and then /Copilot, obviously, then here you will see quite a few, what I think are useful links to go and dive deeper into the topics that we are going to discuss today. So if you would find this interesting, then here at moab.ms /Copilot, you will be able to find some interesting links. Also, if you want to keep getting updates on Copilot via my favorite way of communication, then you should go and connect to me via LinkedIn. I will accept every connection, so feel free to connect. And every time that I find something new and interesting on Copilot, I will just push it there, and you will be able to follow up or to follow along with me. Also, if you like, this is not an option. This is something that you must do. You must subscribe to my YouTube channel, only because I want to pass my friend Andy Malone in the amount of subscribers. So that is not an option. This is something that you have to do. But with that, what we should do is we should get started on what it is that Copilot is. And one of the things that I like to get started with always is answering the question, like, are we already using AI a lot? And one of the nicest things that I can think of that where we are pretty much on a daily basis working with AI is on our cell phones, on our smartphones. What I'm going to do now is probably the most dangerous thing that a trainer or a presenter can ever do, is show the content of a phone. Now, this is the actual thing. This is not a demo. This is not a video. This is my actual phone. And what I want to show you here is just here's some proof that this is my actual phone. I can switch apps if I want to. One of the things I want to show you here is that actually in my case, my iPhone, there is already something named Generative AI that I am using for quite some time now. Here we see my Notes app and my keyboard is open. And if I start typing, my phone is trying to predict what my next word will be that I would like to go and add into a message. So for example, if I am start typing, like let's say I want to start with the word Microsoft here, then I can start typing, and then what you'll see is that well, this app is going to try and predict my next word. So I could go and say, hey, maybe Microsoft 365, and then I can start moving forward. For example, I can start in English here, keeps, and then if I keep going, I can see that it's trying to get more and more, well, information out of what I have already been typing, and it will then take a better approach on what may be the next word that I want to enter in this message. So if I want to go and say, hey, Microsoft 365 keeps getting, well, and then we have options between better and worse. Let's assume it's getting better here. Oh, let's take one time here. So it keeps getting better, and we can then just keep on doing things, and we can keep on going, because based on the words that I have already entered here, we have, well, a better estimation of what might be the next word that we want to enter here. Now, this is one, let's say, very simplistic example on how, for example, generative AI can do things for us. However, now we do know that this kind of AI is, well, quite old already, and very often it doesn't really come with the best options that we would like to go and have as a next word. And obviously, you have been already checking out this other nice tool here, ChatGPT. ChatGPT is also a generative AI solution that we can use to also help us create things. Now, if we look at how a solution like this works, what it does, then what it starts, and let me just go and make a little drawing here for you. What we need is in a system like this, we need information, and that information needs to be accessible for us asking questions about the information. But what the main component for a solution like ChatGPT is, or for example, for a solution like a Copilot for Microsoft 365, is that we are putting information in, and then what we'll do is we let a system make connections between all kinds of information. So if we would be looking at, for example, a Copilot for Microsoft 365, which is the topic for today, then in Microsoft 365, we have something called the Microsoft Graph, which is a component, which is basically another word for all kinds of information. For example, we can have like chat messages that people are sending each other via Teams. People might be sending each other email messages. What we do see sometimes is that we have sometimes we have we have other components like calendar information maybe, and obviously documents as well. Documents that we have found that we are storing in SharePoint or in OneDrive for Business. You may see other like posts in Viva Engage. Basically, when we think about the data that we are diving into, then what we see is the data that we're diving into is basically the Microsoft 365 data, and that is what we call the Microsoft Graph. Now, what an AI system like Copilot or an AI system like ChatGPT does, it will create links between different components. So we can have, for example, all kinds of relationships that we can think of between all these different components that are part of Microsoft 365. So here we have a couple of examples on how these components communicate. Oh, by the way, not to forget one quite important component, which is also part of this, is, for example, people that we have in the organization, and we can see all kinds of connections between documents, people, chat messages, calendar items, posts, emails, and way more than that. So within Copilot for Microsoft 365, the data is basically what users create as part of Office. In a solution like ChatGPT, we can think bigger. For example, we can think about data that we have fed into that system from the internet. Now, if you would ask ChatGPT stuff, then, for example, we can ask something like explain. Let's say explain ChatGPT. Right? We can ask ChatGPT to explain what ChatGPT is. And then basically what happens is, very similar to what I do when I do an internet search, for example, in Bing or in Google. I enter some words. However, other than just doing a word-based search and just try to find results representing these two words, ChatGPT is able to understand what I mean with explain. Right? Explain is a word that makes the system do something. However, still, what we get here is that ChatGPT will just go in and look into a certain location, a large language model. Actually, it will look into a large language model, like a data set, and it will just get out the information based on my request, and it will then just put it in a text for me. Right? This is basically what ChatGPT is about. Now, compared to, for example, a traditional search engine, let's say Bing. If I'm going to say, and hey, I want to explain ChatGPT in Bing, then I will be getting some interesting results. For example, website that says, hey, we have this word, we have that word, that's a match. We have this word, we have that word, that's another match, right? So like a traditional search will look onto the internet, and it will then just go and see if there's any relationships between my request and the documents we can find in a GPT or in an AI system. It will interpret it. It will read, or it will listen to what I ask. It will know that I ask that I want the thing to do something, and then it will go in and give me that answer. Now, Bing is quite nice because Bing also has has a AI component in it called Microsoft Copilot. And Microsoft Copilot is, based on ChatGPT, doing pretty much the same thing as ChatGPT would. However, still, if we look at the results, then what we see is that we can ask a question to that base, And within the data that we have gathered, we can then find the answers. The cool part is that if you would, for example, look at ChatGPT has been given all kinds of data. The system behind this, so the AI bit behind this, is then going to create those different kind of, well, links between the seemingly unrelated components. And then the result will be that we can start asking questions that are more human-like, and the responses will also be more human-like if we ask the right questions. So here, if we start building that, if we start building the data up, then what we are doing is we are basically creating a large language model, which is basically a big ass data set with information. In Copilot, it's office related documents. With ChatGPT, is the internet is basically the source. And we can then go and create, well, relationships between things that are typically not really related. So, for example, if I would ask another question like, hey, explain ChatGPT, but now I want you to explain ChatGPT to a 5-year-old. Now, what will happen is that two seemingly completely disconnected things, like an AI system and a 5-year-old kid, are going to be brought together. And because there is all kinds of links here between all these different components, we will get an answer. And so if I'm asking about explain ChatGPT to a 5-year-old, we now get like text that matches what 5-year-olds would understand, right? It's shorter because, well, we don't need to put that much information in them. And here we get like a magicking talking book to chat with you. Imagine you have a question and you want to hear a story. Well, you can just go in and this might be a better answer for a 5-year-old. Or maybe we can go in and say, hey, I want to explain a quantum theory because, well, it's on the internet and information about quantum theory. We can also go in and say, hey, let's explain quantum theory to Donald Trump. And then we can basically go have two completely different things related to each other. And now what we see is that ChatGPT is going to, well, probably it's not going to be too difficult because Donald Trump would never understand, obviously. But, well, still, we have some sort of an explanation. Now, we can also turn this a little bit around. What if I would go and say, hey, I want to do the same thing. I want to explain quantum theory, but now I want to do it. Like Donald Trump. Now what we do is we're going to have, let's say, Donald Trump explain it to us. And now we get like, well, the way that Donald Trump typically communicates is going to be in here. So you can see like this, like, hey, it's really something. It's like the art of the deal, but the finest of the universe. And then you get, they're unbelievable. It's actually what, well, this is one of my favorite hobbies. And no, I have no life. But one of my favorite hobbies is to have ChatGPT explain things to me in the way that other people would do. We could, for example, go say, hey, and now, like one of my favorite people on a TV show, Michael Scott. So we can now have quantum theory explained to me like Michael Scott. And also creating all kinds of referrals to that series, The Office, that you could watch if you want to. So this is really cool. And one of the nicer things is that instead of us starting to push words in there, like searching with words, we can now search with, well, natural language. We can basically, when I say, and now like Michael Scott, it will know that I previously asked explain quantum theory like Donald Trump. So it's going to explain quantum theory again, but now like Michael Scott. So this is, for example, one of these nicer things that make this kind of technology super interesting. So the large language model is basically the set of data that we have been putting information in. It will create the links between the seemingly different components, and then based on that, we can go in and start, well, communicating with this. Now, what you will notice is that if, for example, we have a user here. So let's say this is a user, right? So this is the user, and this user is going to use a Copilot for Microsoft 365. Then the user can use all kinds of, well, Copilot for Microsoft 365 client components. For, well, one of the most common ones is, for example, Microsoft Teams. However, Copilot you can also find in Outlook. Copilot is in PowerPoint. It is in Excel. It is in Word. And not only the client applications you would install on Windows or Mac OS devices, also the web-based versions are here as well. Other tools that you might have heard of, Microsoft Whiteboard has Copilot now. Another one that may be a little bit new to you is Microsoft Loop. If you have never tried this before, maybe later today, not now, wait until this webinar is over, but later today, check out loop.microsoft.com and explore this a little bit. It's pretty much the thing that will replace in the end your planner tool and your OneNote, and well, it's somewhere in between. And the idea behind Microsoft Loop is to make people communicate even and collaborate even easier. Loop is also named after to be in the loop of something, right? So keep someone in the loop, be in the loop. That's why it's named Loop. So we have a couple of these well, clients that this user can use in order to access Copilot. Now, within the environment here, within any of these client components, that the end user will have to communicate with Copilot. And typically, when we communicate with Copilot, the user can do so in what we call natural language. We can basically communicate with that system as if that system is an actual human being. And it's supposed to sort of respond like an actual human being. Now, that natural language that we are communicating with in Copilot language or in ChatGPT language, it's called a prompt. So we can communicate with Copilot via prompts. And these prompts are allowing us to, well, ask questions. The thing is that, well, prompts are, well, the better you are in creating and well, customizing and optimizing the way you prompt, the better results you will get from Microsoft 365 Copilot. Now, and this is also where, and this is, I know you have been waiting for this part, this is where we can actually see the one and only big difference between men and women. And what I'm about to tell you here is an actual story. So here we go. So let's take our favorite search engine. Here we have my favorite search engine, Bing. If you never work with Bing, then think of Bing as follows. It is like Google, but better. Yes, 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 absolutely. I'm not kidding. Yeah, and it's also, well, super fast because probably I will be the only user. So yeah, it's a fast response search engine as well. So if men are searching online, and I hope I will not offend anybody with this, but I'm gonna tell it anyway. If men search online for stuff, they typically use short instructions like keywords. So for example, let's say you have a fish tank, right? An aquarium, and there's fish in there. If a dude like me would have, if we look into the fish tank and we can see one fish being aggressive, it happens, some fish are aggressive. We can then go, and if we want to know what we can do about this, then you want to go and say, hey, fish, aggressive, like this, search, and the results will be like, okay, hey, why we have aggressive fish results. Fish can become aggressive for several reasons. You get your information. But now, actual story, my own mother, my own mom, also, she has a fish tank. And one of her fish was aggressive towards other fish. And the actual search line that she entered was help. So that already is a nice thing to start your search query with in a search engine. My fish is aggressive. And then she started searching with that. You get the same results. It's just that, well, it's a different type of searching, right? So also, for example, my girlfriend, when she, for example, needs to do some things in the house, like, hey, she wants to, for example, she wants to paint the wall. If I would search for information about painting a wall, I would search for paint wall. My girlfriend would search for how do I paint a wall, like this. That is, it's you get the same results though, right? But it's just funny that there is something different between, at least as far as I can tell, between men and women in this part. So now, if we take this back to the prompt, then what we'll see here is that we need to do something, well, let's say more women-like if we need to communicate with Copilot. So if you would ask who has won, well, the ladies won. Why? Because because with the prompts here, the more information you provide, the better it gets. So the more detailed you ask your questions into the prompt, the better your answer will be. Because just like my phone, when it needed more info to be better in predicting the next word that I wanted to get, well, also in ChatGPT or, for example, Copilot, you can go in and ask very, very, very specific questions. And the more specific I am, the better results we will get. So, and that is an interesting, that's an important component. So one of the things that might be interesting for users to learn is something called prompt engineering. In prompt engineering, we are basically going to become better and better and better in creating our prompts for Copilot. Actually, in order to help users out a little bit with prompt engineering, Microsoft has created something called Copilot Labs. And this is a web portal that users can connect to to get information about how to become better in setting up or creating the prompts. Let me show you where you can find this. I think you have to be at copilot.cloud.microsoft, which is kind of interesting because Microsoft now has its own top level domain. So, copilot.cloud.microsoft. Soon you will see many more portals will just end at .microsoft. I can see, for example, the Azure portal move from portal.azure.com, for example, to portal.azure.microsoft, right? Or just azure.microsoft. Not sure if this is going to happen, but Microsoft has its own top-level domain now. And then you can go and search for prompts, like this. This will take you to, and you have to sign in first, this will take you to the Copilot Lab. So it's copilot.cloud.microsoft/prompts, and this will take you to the Copilot Lab for, by the way, in this list of links, Copilot Lab is also mentioned. So you don't need to memorize all the different URLs that I will be throwing at you. Just check out that list. But here we see the Copilot Lab, and this basically will go and help users to become better at prompting Copilot. So here, if I'm interested in, for example, Outlook, here let's take Outlook for an example. Then we have a couple of prompts that make sense to Outlook. Then what we can do is we have some quick tips for better prompts and some information about our capabilities. Here's some extra information down here as well. For example, if I want to draft an email like this, you can actually see a command that we could run like this. We can say, hey, this is the prompt that I would like to run in Outlook. Write an email congratulating my team on the end of the fiscal year. Then also we have information on how to make it better, right? If you think, hey, let's try this, you can just copy the prompt and take it to Outlook and see what it does. Or you can share this with others. You can save prompts if you have prompts that you like. And at this point in time, the Copilot Lab is still sort of under construction. That means that that at this point you might not see too many options that you can start with. However, still, it's quite a list. But Microsoft is improving the content here of Copilot Lab. So also here we can, at a later stage, we can create our own prompts, store them for later use, share them with our colleagues, help colleagues out with prompting as well. So so that natural language, the prompts in Microsoft 365 Copilot are very, very important for the results to become better and better and better. Now, before I dive into the demos on what Copilot looks like from the end user perspective, before we get there, when we think about the Microsoft Graph, then there is one thing that is for us going to be super important in order to make sure that our users are not accidentally seeing things that they are not allowed to see. One of the things is that we need to be very protective on how our what kind of access these users have to the data within that Microsoft Graph. Now, in ChatGPT, this is not a thing, because in ChatGPT is just, getting things from the internet, which is public anyway. But in Microsoft 365, in the Microsoft Graph, all kinds of security models are already in place. Thinking about security here, for example, you may already have, you may already be working with Microsoft 365 groups, or you may be working with Microsoft Teams within Microsoft Teams, and based on group membership or based on Teams membership, you may or may not have access to certain documents. So within an organization, you have to be a member of a team in order to access that team's resources. Now, resources in Teams are, for example, documents that we have in SharePoint. Right, we have SharePoint access to certain sites, maybe. From the end user perspective, this could also be, for example, OneDrive access, pretty much always your own OneDrive for business environment. This also contains your own mailbox. Like if you're a user with Exchange Online and Outlook, then you have access to your mailbox. So yeah, that's something that you want to be able to find out. Also, when we think about Teams, chat messages. And what chat messages are we allowed to access? Well, first of all, obviously we are allowed to access our one-to-one chat messages, but also we have group chat messages that are part of the teams that we are, well, a member of in Microsoft Teams again. So just like that, we have all kinds of, well, levels of access from the end user's perspective. And in Copilot for Microsoft 365, these security solutions, they hold, they stand as they are, because the Microsoft Graph is just basically the system that stores all the data. The security is already in place. Copilot will just adopt into that. So if we want to ask questions to this graph, then, well, the security will still stand. A component that is super important to us in order to, well, be able to find information within that graph is a component, part of of Copilot, that is the semantic index. And the semantic index is basically helping us to find all that information within that environment, but taking into account the security that we already have put in place for that user, based on group memberships or based on, well, Teams memberships as well. And then based on that, we can start going to ask those questions, and in the end, at one point, get the results as well. And here in the back, the Copilot system will go in and say, hey, this is the data that we have, and this is the results that we have. And now we are going to sort of create connections between the different, again, seemingly not related components here. So what does that mean for the end user? So let's say we are a user. Let's see if I can open up Microsoft Teams. Here we are. Here, for example, we have in Copilot, we have here we have Copilot listed. And here we can start, well, prompting Copilot. This is actually Microsoft 365 chat, or Copilot chat. Now we can see that this is part of Teams. However, if I would go into, let's see, if I, for example, go into my Office 365 or my Microsoft 365 main page, then also here we have Copilot chat, right? So it's the same thing then that we have, for example, in Teams. Copilot for 365, Copilot for 365, it's here. Now here we can just go in and start asking questions about things. For example, we could go and say, hey, what is new from, and then I can start asking about a certain person. So I could go say, hey, what is new from Alex de Jong? I can just ask this question and then, well, send it to Copilot chat, and it will then check, for example, that we are get information about what is happening to what I did in my office environment recently, right? So this is things that we could go in and check out. Now, one of the things that you might have not seen before, which is actually kind of cool, is that if you go and would do the same thing, so what is new from, I can then use the slash button, and now it allows me to search for specific types of things. So I can go and indeed select that user object. It now recognizes that I am looking for a certain user object. And so we can do this, and we can, for example, ask like what presentations has he been working on? Like this. And we can then just go in and say, check this out. And now recognizing that this is indeed looking for a person, like people, let's say a people object here in the middle, we might be able to find more things. We might be able to find more specific results because we are actually looking for an individual here. So in this example, we can see that we get answers on what PowerPoint presentations have I been working on lately, right? So that might be a very useful solution. Now, the cool part of Copilot here, and that is what I really think is a cool part, is that we will not only get the answers for our questions, we will also get sort of proof of the answers, because it's for us it is important to understand the results, but also we need to understand why Copilot is giving me these specific results that it is giving me. So what you see, if you look closer, here we can see, for example, that that we get these little little quotations here, the little highlighting components here. And what is cool here is that if I need more info, I can actually dive into the messages in here. So we can actually dive deeper into the actual things that we have been seeing as a result. Here we can actually see a PowerPoint presentation that is being mentioned as one of the results, and we can see the PowerPoint presentation. And if we like to, click on the link and it will immediately take me to that PowerPoint presentation, like this one. And this is allowing me to, well, dive deeper into the results that we have here in this environment. And this is sort of the generic Copilot for Microsoft 365 interface. You can get access to this from Teams as well as from your Office 365 homepage, let's say. This is also where you can access other applications like this. Now, this is one way to work with Copilot. Another thing, another solution that it makes use of Copilot, let's see, is Outlook. So here we have Outlook, and let's go into the archive. And I want to go and I want to get an email conversation that I have had with here with Nirpinder. One of these solutions here in Intune, or sorry, in Copilot, is that we can now, for example, ask Outlook to summarize the email. And here we see, for example, the things that we have we have been talking about some contracts and some traveling arrangements that we've seen and so on. But we have a quick summary of what we can, a quick summary of an email thread that by itself may be a little bit longer. Another thing that you might like to be doing here is, for example, we might want to go in and, well, create a new email like this, and we can have Copilot help us out creating the email. So here we can go, for example, draft the entire email with Copilot, or we can get coaching by Copilot. So let's say I want to coach something. Oh, because the email includes a language that is currently not support. Okay, that's interesting. I didn't do anything yet. So you know what? Let's just start with drafting an email. And here you can just ask about things like, hey, I need to be updated on when and how attendees of the Copilot webinar will be able to access the recording. of the webinar. The webinar is about Copilot for Microsoft 365. So that is something we could have Copilot make up, right? So here we are. And this, in that case, will be the email that has been sent, that will be sent, right? So this is something we could do. Maybe I want to go and be more casual. Then the email will be, well, created in a little bit different way. Or we could go and say, hey, I want to make this a poem, which obviously is the best solution. So here we have the poem about, hello, I'm glad you're fine. You wanted to know about Copilot online. The recording will be very soon for you and the others who joined the Zoom. Would it recognize that I'm using Zoom here? You'll get an email with a link to see how Copilot can help you with Microsoft 365. Okay. Well, and just like that. Now, I may want to go and do my coaching thingy. Do you want to keep a Copilot suggestion? Go back. I want to keep it. Yeah, that's what I want. So this is my email. And now I can go and get some coaching, which is quite interesting, because now the question is, will Copilot start to sort of better itself? That would be so cool. But here we actually get to see a little bit about the tone, about the insights, about what we are doing. And now it's also creating suggestions. Well, it could be more formal. The reader sentiment, we could be thinking, the reader sentiment sounds too self-promotional. Clarity, is it, try adding more details? Yeah, maybe. So just like this, right, we can go in and say, okay, we might want to make our our email a little bit more formal because of that. This is just two examples of how well, Copilot is shown to users on the client side. Maybe another tool that you might like to check out is Loop. I like Loop. I yet have to sort of get used to Loop a little bit better, because there is a lot of stuff that we should be able to do with this. It's like I mentioned, it's going to be sort of the replacement of OneNote and Planner, and so here what we can do is go into Loop, and maybe we can. So if I want to get started here within Loop, you can create an idea, and in that idea you can start adding stuff. So we can, for example, use that slash button again. And here we have things that we can start with, right? Hey, we want to start with things. Here on the right-hand side, you have Copilot, and we can sort of ask Copilot to do stuff. For example, say, hey, I want to create a table of contents about a webinar, on, and then we would say Copilot for Microsoft 365. Let's do this. Now, Copilot can start creating content for us. Basically, you can do the same thing if you would. Be working with Word, for example. You can have Word create a draft for you, so you will never have to start with an empty document. If you have writer's block, then well, with Copilot, that is history. Other things we can do with Copilot. Now, this is, for example, this is in Loop again. Other things we can do, for example, in let's say PowerPoint. Let me show you PowerPoint here. So I have I do have this here. Let me just get rid of that. Not this. Here we are. So this is the PowerPoint. This is the PowerPoint presentation, but actually here we have the actual PowerPoint slide deck. Here we could go in and we can ask Copilot to do stuff for us. So here we have Copilot, and here we may want to go and ask Copilot to create something for us. You know what? Let's just create an entirely new presentation here. So it's all empty. We can do Copilot, and I want to go and say, hey, I want you to create a presentation about quantum theory. Make it colorful. Colorful, is that a word? Make it colorful, and I need to have at least 5 slides. Add more pictures. You know, I like pictures. So just, you know, add more information. The more information you get, the better your results will be. So let's just see what Copilot is going to make out of this. And here, actually it named it like a colorful introduction. How cool. At least 5 slides. Yeah, at least 5 slides. The dual nature of light, and we have this kind of things. Well, so it just took some stuff from the internet that makes sense. Maybe now we still want to use the designer to make it look a little bit different. But we can also go and say, hey, make the presentation use colors red and blue. See if we can, if this is something that we can ask Copilot to fix for us. And then, that is okay. So that is the lazy solution here. That is too bad. But hey, you know, we can always try. Oh, there's actually did it come with a video too? Oh, how sweet! Very, very colorful. So just to illustrate that that indeed Copilot has quite a couple of nice solutions. Other things that you might be interested in, we can, for example, talk to someone here, and then in Copilot we can go and, for example, say, hey, I want to summarize the chat. And then, well, this is not a lot of things that make a lot of sense here, but still, still it will, still it shows that it was able to find information that it could summarize. Well, that is something that you might like to, that saves you a lot of time reading through everything here in the chat, right? So that is something you might like to see as an example of how, well, chat, or how, for example, Microsoft Teams can also make use of what is it? Copilot here. Now, when talking about Microsoft Teams, then there is actually something that that is very interesting when it comes to Microsoft Teams. I want to show you this slide here. I don't want to show you too many slides, but this one is an interesting one. Teams comes in different forms. You may know that. There is like normal Teams. That is part of your Microsoft 365 license. There is also Teams Premium, which is a separate purchase. And with that separate purchase, you will be getting, accessing more features in Microsoft Teams. And some of those features are more security, let's say, security related. And one of the things that, if you have Teams Premium and Copilot, one of the cool solutions is something called Intelligent Recap. So you could have been in a meeting, and that meeting could have been recorded, like a Teams meeting. And then what Intelligent Recap does for Teams Premium is it will indeed create your speaker note or your meeting notes. It will show, for example, the documents that are involved. You can check out all the notes, but you can also filter on mentions. So, hey, when has my name been named inside the meeting? You can have a full transcript of the entire meeting. The notes you could be checked. here, the AI notes and the normal notes, you can actually see who has been speaking and when in that meeting. So when we say who said what functionality, that's what we see here. That is what Intelligent Recap allows you to do if you use Teams Premium. If you have like normal Teams, then we also have, well, in Copilot of Teams, we do have options like, well, run run parts, ask questions about the meeting, to indeed summarize the meeting, ask about decisions that have been made, and so on. Where, well, Intelligent Recap is something that, well, basically goes in and it's like have someone in your meeting that will take notes of everything, but now it's an automated system. So that is one of these nicer features that, well, that maybe can make it worthwhile for at least some users in your organization to get or to start using a Microsoft Teams premium version. Might be interesting to for people to look into. So just a couple of examples of what a user sees about what the user sees from Copilot here. So here we see different applications. There is different ways, and we can have all kinds of different prompts. Now, if you want to see more per application, then you might want to go and check out my moab.ms/copilot thing again. A little bit further down in the list, I have a couple of links to certain pre-created demos on what Copilot does in Teams, in PowerPoint, Outlook, Word, Excel, and Whiteboard. If you're interested, then this might be a nice resource to check. Now, we talked about a Copilot a bit, and we talk about ChatGPT a bit. Now, when it comes to the major difference is actually that Copilot has to put has to get its information out of corporate data, and ChatGPT is getting its information out of the internet. Now, I can imagine that in many cases, users of Copilot would also like to add information from the internet into the results in Copilot. Now, one of the things that we can do, and I'm going to show you here in the, if I just go into the Copilot, where are we? If we are going into the Copilot, here, this one, into Copilot chat, then we can go and say, hey, you can also go and ask and add information, for example, to add also web content, right? So we have a plugin here, basically a button that allows us to go in and say, hey, I want to get web content from my results too. And maybe we can now go and ask that same question again. Still, right? Still, now I want to add the internet-related results as well. I may get the same results, right? But so here, basically, we can see probably we are getting the same results here. But maybe now, if I want to also get some information about it, so we can say, hey, now add information about the presentation style of Alex de Jong. We can now, well, because it's a conversation, we know what we have been asking, and now we're going to add another question. And now we might want to go, well, add some information from the internet here. So here we now have added the internet, and well, it has been searching somewhere, right? So yeah, and that is something that may be well, useful as extra information into the conversation here. So not if you want to, you can also go and say, hey, but maybe it would also be nice if we could get some extra info from, let's say, somewhere else, right? So let's just draw a little cloud here to, so go and say, hey, we add internet-based info on that. Now, this, however, whether or not we want to allow the internet to be part of the results is a setting we can do. Now, in a bit, we will go through the steps that we need to take in order to get our organization ready for the use of Copilot for Microsoft 365. However, there is, let's say, another thing that we can go into. I need to be in a browser here. And then I want to be into the admin portal for Microsoft 365. And in here we have a Copilot management area. And then what we'll see is that here we have a couple of components related to a Copilot. And here we have one setting that says improved responses with web content in Copilot for Microsoft 365. And if I open this one up, here we can go and say, hey, are we going to allow this or are we going to not allow this? So in this case, I'm allowing it, right? But that's a setting that may be useful here in this environment. Something that you may like to be checking out or adding or disallowing here as well. Now, the next thing that we need to be thinking of. So if we now have Copilot here and we have a client-side perspective from the user, we have the semantic index and well, basically we have the data that we are basing our results upon, right? Then, well, this data set, maybe the next, maybe one of the things that we well, that we could get a little bit enthusiastic and we could get and go and say, hey, oh, this is so cool. Let's just purchase a bunch of these Copilot for Microsoft 365 licenses, assign them to the users, wait a couple of hours, because then we can see all the Copilot buttons coming in and all the different clients that the users have. And we can start and we can allow the users to just start using it. Now, how tempting this may seem, this is not the way to go. What we need to do is we need to take a couple of steps. And first of all, we need to prepare for Copilot for Microsoft 365. That is one of the things that we need to prepare for. And maybe one of the things is, first of all, maybe we need to know, we need to understand what Copilots, is that a word? What Copilots can we access? Because, well, Copilot for Microsoft 365 is one, but there is more Copilots. And if you think about the different Copilots, then, well, there is actually there is a couple of different Copilots. Now, for us, when we think about, let's say, the different Copilots, it makes sense for us to understand which ones we have, let's say, more or less from the end user's perspective, for the, let's say, traditional user's perspective. So one of the things that I want to show you here is this slide, not this one, man. Oh, shoot. Actually, oh man, sorry. I was hoping that I was start opening up another slide, but here we are. If I do it now, this is better. Here we see the differences of, well, let's say, end user related Copilots. Here we see, for example, that there is something called Microsoft Copilot. There is Microsoft Copilot with commercial data protection. And we have Copilot for Microsoft 365. Now, Copilot Personal is the one you get from Bing. It's public, it's free. This is just if you access, for example, Bing or copilot.microsoft.com, I think. You can also find it at that point. But if you go into Bing and you just, and if you sign in using a personal account, like an Outlook.com account or whatever, then you will have access to your personal Copilot. If you have an Azure Active Directory or a Microsoft Entra ID user account, and you have, for example, let's say Office, then you will be eligible for working with Microsoft Copilot with commercial data protection. By the way, this is the new name for what we used to know as Bing Chat Enterprise. Bing Chat Enterprise, let me just go and switch to a, If we switch to a browser here, I want to go and, where is my browser? Here. Then if we go to, for example, Bing, let's just go for Bing, then you can ask Bing different things. We can go and say, hey, Alex de Jong PowerPoint or something. We can ask this and we get access from the internet. However, we can also access work-related data, and then from Bing, we have access to PowerPoints that someone has been working with, right? And just like that, we can also go into chat, and here we are actually using here we are actually using what we used to know as Bing Chat Enterprise. For example, but now it's called Microsoft Copilot with commercial data protection. And here we can actually see that it says something like, hey, your personal and company data are protected in the chat. We can also just focus on work as like a word result here. And this will then get me to Copilot for Microsoft 365 again, but I can still check the web and include, well, content from organizational data. So that is basically what we look at as if we look at that Copilot with commercial data protection here. So that is one, and then there's also the Copilot for Microsoft 365 that will give us even more like commercial data protection, as well as access to data of the Microsoft 365 graph and Microsoft 365 apps integration. Plus, we need $30 per user per month for allowing access to the to Copilot for Microsoft 365. So what Copilots do we have as part of, let's say, a user object in Entra ID? We have a few here. Another preparation step that we need to take is what licenses are required before we can go and start with Copilot. And well, what you could do is you need to have Microsoft 365, obviously, and then we can get Copilot active for E3, right? You need E3 or E5. Also, you can be adding it to A3 and A5 for academic purposes. And you can also add Copilot to Business Premium. So here we are. A couple of, let's say, licensing requirements before we can add that $30 Copilot for Microsoft 365 license on top of that. So license-wise, we need to have something fixed as well. Other requirements. And yeah, I'm sorry, I always forget that. Yeah, and always forget that because I see a response from someone in the chat here. It says also standard. Yeah. The reason that I always forget standard is that I pretend it doesn't exist. I know that I know that there is many organizations using it. It just doesn't feel like a real Microsoft 365 solution because it lacks so many things that are so good for your organization. Yeah, to me, the absolute bare minimum is business premium. Oh, and when I just said that, someone left the meeting. Okay, so I hope I did not offend anyone with that. But anyway, that's these licenses. So thank you for keeping me sharp here. So that's what we need. Also, users will need an Entra ID account, and that could either be cloud-based or synced. As long users must sign in into their systems via an Entra ID user object, formerly known as Azure Active Directory, obviously. So we have a couple of prerequisites. Maybe if we dive a little bit deeper there for our end users, users need to use, let's say, updated versions of the Microsoft 365 apps, especially for and then, for example, when it comes to Outlook and Teams, you will actually need something called the new version of it. That is so. For example, a user could go into where is my browser here? So we could be in Loop here, for example, being a user. We could be here as well. So let's say I want to open up Outlook here. Then this is my Outlook stuff, right? Now this is the new Outlook, and this will get me information. This gives me a Copilot, but you could also, I'm not really sure how to be honest, but you can even go to the previous version of Outlook, and that will not show Copilot stuff. Oh, by the way, speaking of Outlook, there is something that I need to show you, and I am fully aware of what I am about to show you. Has nothing to do with Copilot. It's just that it's somewhat, I don't know. I just have to show you. Sorry for that. You are now the victim of what I think is cool myself, and I'm not going to pay attention to what you think. So if you don't like this, just go do something for yourself for a few minutes. This is Outlook, and as you can see, I have a very cool theme in Outlook. Now I'm going to tell you what theme this is. In Outlook, this is the, hold on, this is the lesbian theme. And I can hear you think, Alex, what are you saying? Well, it is true. If you check out Outlook for, in my case, the Mac, and I can check out here, then Microsoft has added in Outlook something called Pride Teaming. And then here you can see that I am currently using, I was not kidding, the lesbian theme. If I want, I can switch easily to the Pride theme here, and you get different colors. Maybe I want to switch to the transgender theme, or I want to go lesbian again, or let's say bisexual or non-binary theme. Well, you have all kinds of options. I like the lesbian theme better because the letters are in orange, and I am from the Netherlands. That's why I like it better. Well, it's because orange is our national color. I know, has nothing to do with Copilot. I just had to show you. It's sometimes you see these things that are sort of, well, things that makes you think, let's say. So we need the updated versions of Microsoft 365 applications for Outlook and Teams. Make sure you have the new version. So these are a couple of these prerequisites. Then still, are we ready for Copilot? No. The next step is we want to make sure that we want to get ready, and that means basically get security and compliance ready for Copilot. And here we need to do something special. Here we need to take care of extra security. The thing is that if you check at this picture here, if you check the picture, then we see the Microsoft graph, and we see security applied in the Microsoft graph. It's all role-based access control. If you're a member of a group, you may have access to a team or not. If you're a member of, if you're just based on your user account, you may have access to something or not. So yeah, there is security already there, but we want more. And the more security here, if we think about more security, then what we want is we want to get security ready based on Microsoft Purview. And actually what we want to be looking into is we want to look into something called Microsoft Purview Information Protection. Microsoft Purview Information Protection is not Microsoft Information Protection. So if you have already been using these kinds of solutions, then you might know about information protection. But Purview Information Protection does do a little bit more. So here we have the Microsoft Graph. And in that Microsoft Graph, we have found all kinds of information. Chat messages, documents, people, emails, posts, everything. So one of the things that we can do, and that is what Purview Information Protection is going to do here. What is going to happen here is that for all this data, we want to implement something called data classification. And data classification is the process of going through all the data here, and then classify it. For example, you want to classify data as maybe confidential information because of the content. So data classification could, for example, be based on personal identifiable information. Data classification could be based on data related to healthcare, or data related to financial businesses, or legal businesses, or privacy related information. So what we can do with Microsoft Purview Information Protection is we can implement a system that can go through all that data and then classify the data inside these data locations. Now, based on the data, and if we go into the data classification, basically what it does, it will make use of different types of classifiers. One of them is called sensitive information types. And another component that we may want to use is something called trainable classifiers. There is something else. Called exact data matching, which also does pretty much the same thing for database related data. For now, I want to just not pay too much attention to that, but these are the two more important ones. Sensitive information types. If you check it out, wrong direction. Here we can go, for example, open up a portal called compliance.microsoft.com. And just you might remember that like 5 minutes ago I told that the only serious business version of Microsoft 365 is Business Premium. Well, one of the things that Business Premium can do, and the other business versions of Microsoft 365 can't, is indeed use information protection. So this is something that you just fix a good license, right? That's important. But here, one of the things that we have here is data classification. And when we go through data classification, we can, for example, check what kind of sensitive information types we have in our data set. So in the data, something called the data estate. Basically, everywhere where our data goes, we may find, for example, Greece passport numbers, or we might find Indian GST numbers, or Latvia personal codes, or Poland passport numbers, or Slovenia physical addresses, or Turkey physical addresses, or whatever you can think of here. All kinds of data that, based on, for example, regular expressions or dictionaries, we are able to recognize in our data estate. Again, data estate is everywhere where data is. Now, this is based on regular expressions or dictionaries. We also have an option for trainable classifiers. And trainable classifiers you can get if you have E5 licenses. You need E5 for this part. But if you have this, then this system will also be able to recognize, for example, finance-related data, HR-related documents, intellectual property, IT-related data, legal agreements, license agreements, all kinds of special types of data we can find based on these trainable classifiers. Now, the result is, if we have run all that classification thingy, we now know what kind of data we have inside what kind of data object, like chat messages in Teams, documents in SharePoint and OneDrive, email in mailboxes, and so on. So data classification allows us to understand with what kind of information we are dealing. This is super important if you want to set up security for Copilot right, because Copilot is a system that is going to create all kinds of relationships between, again, seemingly unrelated components. But if you ask the right questions, you will get the right results. So we want to make sure that users are not able to get Copilot results about information that they should not have access to. Now, one of the things that we can do in order to, well, make sure that they only can access what they need to be able to access is by implementing the data classification bits. And then based on data classification, we can add something called information protection. And information protection means that we are going to protect at the document level the document. So we can encrypt the content of something. We can encrypt the content of a document, for example, and we can allow access, or we can, well, prevent access to a document based on what kind of information is inside that document. Now, again, Copilot will only show information from data that is accessible by that user in the first place. So if you set up information protection properly, you are adding extra security and you are making sure that people are not accidentally getting access because of the power of the semantic index. Because security takes precedence over index. So we have information protection is one solution that you might want to implement. Let me show you a quick demo on how that works. So one of the things, also an E5 component, by the way, is the Content Explorer. The Content Explorer will basically show you results of data classification. So, for example, if I want to go and check out all the diseases that are mentioned in my tenant, then here, for example, I can see that I have in Exchange 100 instances. And if I check out you can see it's all in my mailbox. And here we can then dive deeper and it will actually show content even, right? So, and now, yeah, so in content, it for some reason, it will recognize, in this case, diseases, or for example, other things like IP version 4 addresses. Here, at one point, I will probably see different locations of where we have IP version 4 addresses. It will be somewhere. And if we want to check the actual content, you can even do that. And somewhere here, we may find a certain IP address here, right? So I'm not going to try and read it, but it's so we get some information out of that. Now, the Content Explorer is just for us a way to check the results of data classification. The next step is we can set up information protection. And information protection allows us to go in and say, hey, now when we know what kind of information we have, we now want to set security for documents, for example, that have that information in it. So what we do, you can start by creating a policy, and you can go and say, hey, I want to create a label. That's a label that says, hey, this might, for example, be data, let's say health-related data. So let's say health data. I'm going to be lazy for this demo, so I'm just going to be very quick in creating the content here. Let's say I want to make this in orange, like this. And now what I can do is I can go and say, hey, where in my environment can I go back? I would like to go back here. Oh yeah, here. Let's go back. So where do I want to search for this type of data? In files, in emails, and in meetings. Sometimes you can also enable this for groups and sites in SharePoint. You can do this in databases. And then you can go and say, okay, I want to, for example, apply encryption when data is health-related data. So we can then go in and say, hey, I want to encrypt the document when we find that data. I want to also set up access control. So I can go say, hey, who is able to access the data now? So maybe I can add a specific users or groups. So what we see here is that maybe when it comes to health-related data, I have people in the, I don't know what kind of team I would say, let's say the Project X team or something. They will be getting access to that data, right? So we can pre-configure certain levels. Also, we can pre-configure certain levels of access. Let's say we have a management department here as well. They should also be a co-author, but maybe another group of people in my organization. Let's say the finance department. I think I saw that one here. Here, the finance department, for example, they may also check, but they will only get viewer permissions, right? So you can only view the content, nothing else, just like that. So here we can go and pre-create levels of access to documents that will get this label in the end. Now, if you do nothing else than this, users will have to apply the documents. So that's a good thing. However, you can also set up auto labeling. And here we can go and say, hey, if we see a document that contains, for example, let's say medical terms and conditions, because that is, let's say, health-related data. Maybe some other things like diseases, right? We have diseases as well. So we want to go and this, and maybe some international classifications of diseases. So we want to add those as well. Then here we now added a couple of, things that we want to be looking for. Right? Now, I get a question in the Q&A section about, can you say something about the data classifiers, how they will impact on Copilot? For example, when it comes to false positives. Well, if you implement auto labeling, something that I am doing here, then in fact what may happen is that documents may be automatically labeled with security that is based on a false positive. In that case, it will be labeled, therefore security will be applied, and therefore Copilot might not show information to a user because that user might not have access to that document anymore because of the false positives. That is something that you might want to go and first, definitely test policies first before you are actually going to implement and apply that auto labeling, right? But that is something that you might want to do. Maybe one of the things that you could do is not just automatically apply the label, but maybe you just want to go and recommend the user to apply the label first, other than, applying it automatically like this, right? So this is a way for us to work with items that users are working with. So this is something we could set up. This is auto appliance if you want to, but there's also another policy for auto labeling. And this could also work where you can go and create a policy that says, I don't care about whether or not users are touching the label, So for example, if we have, for example, medical and health related data from the United States, then these are the sensitive information types that we are going to check. And then we can go and say, hey, and what I want to do now, I want to automatically label documents and therefore protect content based on, for example, the location. So we can say, hey, if I find this kind of data anywhere in my tenant, for example, in SharePoint, then we are going to fully automate the labeling for those documents. That might be super powerful because, well, you are applying security at a very good level, at the document level, from based on where a document is residing and what the content is. Also, and that is the question that we just answered, in case of false positives, this might also sort of rule out users from accessing certain data, therefore also rule out Copilot for accessing certain data for users. So yeah, that is something that you want to be careful with. So if you want to implement these kind of technologies, you have to take it slow. You want to start with small groups, start more. If you create policies, do not allow the policies to fully automate and apply things right from the start, but you want to know what would be the impact of applying a policy like this. That would be something to really think of here. Yeah, but well, it is at least another extra way to go in and use. And like I mentioned, this type of technology, by the way, is also available for Microsoft 365 Business Premium. You may want to check out this website, m365maps.com. Here you can easily go in and, for example, compare all Microsoft 365 Business versions to each other. And here, for example, we can see that Business Basic, Business Premium, like basic stuff. Here, if you check out Business Premium here, not Business Basic or Standard, but Business Premium, you can see that information protection is actually part of the plan here. Just like Entra ID Plan 1 and even Intune, which is also a nice benefit if you do device management, and Defender for Business if you want to do threat management for devices. So like I mentioned before, get a minimum of Business Premium because that really helps your organization stay more secure. So information. Oh, by the way, this website, m365maps.com, does not only show business versions of Microsoft 365. Obviously, there is also all the enterprise versions next to each other. And if, for example, somewhere here you see something that you don't really know what it is, for example, if you don't know what identity protection is, you can always click that button and it will take you straight to the information page. So what we can say about this page, well, first of all, we have to thank this guy, Aaron Dinich, for creating it. And based on what we see here and how cool and good this solution is, we can pretty safely state that Aaron has no life. Because, well, Microsoft licensing is already difficult. Putting it into sort of a logical and display in a logical, sensible way, that's even more time consuming. So apparently he cannot have a life if you are able to do this. But we have to thank him for it. It's good stuff. So we have information protection is one of those things that we want to add as an extra into the security part. Other solutions based on information protection here, other solutions is, one of them is something called data loss prevention. Data loss prevention is a solution in Microsoft Purview Information Protection that is helping you to make sure that confidential or organizational data is not accidentally shared with people outside your organization, for example. So with data loss prevention, you can help your users and prevent them from accidentally sharing information to external users. And another solution that we may want to be implementing here as data loss or next to information protection and data loss prevention, but that is, you need an E5 license for it, but then you'll get something cool, and that something cool is called insider risk management, which what it does, it uses machine learning and AI to monitor users' behavior, and then based on that we can start to sort of identify weird behavior by users, and if a user behaves weirdly, we can be notified about, hey, this user is doing weird things. And we can monitor user behavior, and we can start to investigate stuff using that part. So Microsoft Purview Information Protection, it is sort of the new name for everything related to classifying your data and protecting your data. And well, for Microsoft, for Copilot for Microsoft 365, this is actually a very useful addition in security to get to a higher level of security here. So that is what Copilot. So if you want to get ready for Copilot, then these are, let's say, some of the steps that we want to take here. Now, you don't have to memorize all this. Microsoft actually in Microsoft 365 in the admin center, they have created for you some guidance on what steps you need to go through if you want to get your tenant ready for Copilot for Microsoft 365. One of the things that you need to do is you go into setup here, so admin.microsoft.com, go into setup. Then in setup, you can go and scroll a little bit further down, and here we have a link that says get ready for Copilot for Microsoft 365. You can then go in and open it up. Here we have a getting started page like this. And then this is a little wizard that could help you out getting your tenant ready for Microsoft 365 Copilot. Now, in some cases, I have heard some people that I've been talking to in my presentations and so on, and they said, yeah, we click the setup button here, and for some reason, that get ready for Microsoft Copilot here is not available to us. Now, what I've done here is, if you check out my Copilot link, my Copilot set of links here on the MOAB website, I did create a link here, and that would be this one here. It's the Microsoft Copilot for Microsoft 365 setup guide. If you click this link here, it will basically open up the exact same thing. Okay, here let's go back to the beginning point. It starts here, which is the exact same thing as I just opened up. I don't know where I opened that up, somewhere in the back. So here, and this is one, and then I had another one opened up. I'm not sure where I did that. Oh, here, and then we can open up this one, and that would get started. And here we have the same setup that we have been checking out, right? So these are the two same ones. So if you do not have that link, just use the MOAB website and then /Copilot to get access. Then what you can do is basically go through a little wizard. And this wizard will first tell you that are the things that we need here. So what I just mentioned already, right? You have Microsoft 365 apps for the enterprise on the client. Get the updated version. So a version and update channel. Make sure you have updated versions of those apps. We need to review some privacy related settings. What may be useful is you can also maybe go in and do some organizational branding. So well, you can have, for example, PowerPoint use presentations from scratch, but how cool would it be as those PowerPoint presentations are already, let's say, company branded. So here we have a document that goes and that takes us through it, where we can start creating certain templates for PowerPoint that Copilot can then make use of. That's organizational branding here. Other things that you might want to implement, again, here is Microsoft Purview Information Protection. So that indeed takes you through the steps of setting up these things properly. Now, I can imagine that you might find that Microsoft Purview Information Protection a little bit, let's say, difficult or kind of, well, tech heavy solution, and it is. If you want to learn more about Microsoft Purview Information Protection, I suggest that you are going to take that a course called SC400, which is the information protection course. It's an instructor-led course. Takes 4 days, and then you will learn everything about, well, setting up this part of your Microsoft 365 tenant. And it is important because it is important to secure your tenant for the use of Copilot. Obviously, this presentation is brought to you by Glasspaper in Norway. Obviously, if you want to, you can book this course at Glasspaper, and I promise I will be the teacher. So I'm not sure if that makes you happy, but I will be the teacher there. So you will learn all that stuff in 4 days. Other things, Entra ID is important, right? Users must have Entra-based accounts. Also, we want to set up some sharing features in OneDrive and SharePoint. Super important to do this in a nice and proper way. So we don't want to we want to prevent basically for users to overshare data, because if you overshare information, again, Copilot will just grab everything and it will present things. So you want to be careful with that. When it comes to Outlook and Teams, like I mentioned, please make sure to use the new version of Outlook and Teams. I also showed you a little bit about Microsoft Loop. Not all organizations, if you would check loop.microsoft.com, you may not have access to that. This is actually something that you might have to enable for your organization. There's a little link here that says, hey, how are we going to enable Loop for our organizations? And then in the end, when it's at the readiness part, we go and say, okay, and now we need to go and create, and now we need to go and move forward. And this is where we are going to get licenses. So first of all, you need to acquire the licenses. Like I mentioned, one license of Copilot is cost you $30 per user per month. Now, when I first started talking about Copilot to people in the presentations that I'm delivering about this subject, about this topic, what we saw is that many people thought, hey, that $30 per user per month is a lot of money, and I get that, right? $30 per user. If you have like 10,000 users, hey, you are spending, what is it? $300,000 per month on Copilot, right? The thing is that, Copilot is in fact not expensive at all. That's actually basically what I want to say here. It's not expensive at all. If you look at this, so let me show you this picture here. So what is your return on investment on Copilot here? So if we assume that an average employee costs about $70,000 per year. I'm about to sneeze, by the way, which is kind of annoying. If an employee costs you $70,000, oh, there we go. Cruise it to me. Then we could see that the monthly cost is like this, the weekly cost, the hourly cost, and well, we can see that Copilot costs $30. So if a user only saves 1 hour of time every month, the return on investment is 12%. If a user would save 2.5 hours per month, this is per month, right? You already have an internal investment above 100%, and that would be that's good value. So if users can save time, then well, you as a business owner, you might need either less people or maybe even better, get more work done in the same amount of time with the same amount of people, earn more, and therefore it is perfectly fine that $30 it's not expensive. It's just that, well, maybe it feels a little bit expensive, but I feel exactly the same thing about Microsoft 365 E5. To me, the only proper Microsoft 365 version is E5, and to be honest, it's not even good enough. I would like to spend more on better licenses that, for example, always include Teams Premium, the Intune suite, and maybe some other privacy-related products. There's always ways for us to make it better. So, license your Copilot users, purchase the license, assign them to users. That's the step you want. And then the next step is send users an email about this. So we can tell users like, hey, this is an email you'll get. Like, hey, we have Copilot for you. You can now start using this. So you can go in and say, hey, I want to send an email to a user here, and just send that email. Right? And maybe like that, we can do it based on groups, and all groups of users will get that same email with information, which is kind of nice. So they are now aware of the fact that they do have a Copilot. And once we're done, click done, and you're done with your Copilot enablement part here. But just like this, well, you have now enrolled Copilot in the organization. You have sent an email to the users stating that they have access to Copilot, so they can do cool things using Copilot. Maybe next step for us is basically two things that we want to do. So, so we get security and we get security and compliance ready. Then we will purchase and assign Copilot licenses, right? We want to send an email to the users about this. Send an email about Copilot into your users. And then we have two things that we need to do. First of all, let's say I want to go and I want to learn what kind of management capabilities we have of Copilot. So what can we do to manage Copilot? Again, we need to be in the admin center for Microsoft 365. Here we are. If we open, no, not like, yeah, like this. If we open it up, we have a Copilot button here. I already showed you, for example, how we can allow or disallow web content to be part of this. However, there is more. For example, here we have data security and compliance. So manage how Copilot references documents and sites in the Purview compliance portal. If I go here, right, we get some information like, hey, you need to set up your sensitivity labels, your retention policies, your communication compliance, audit and e-discovery. And this is exactly compliance.microsoft.com. So still it says, hey, if you want to make changes to it, go here. Go, for example, and set up sensitivity labels, retention policies, and so on. So that is basically a link somewhere else. Also, we have settings about Copilot for Bing, Edge, and Windows. Just the link, say, hey, what about it, right? We read some information about it. So nothing else to do here, just info, because it's just there. We can have users, or we can send feedback logs. So we can say, hey, maybe we want to go and allow certain users to send feedback to Microsoft about Copilot. So then Microsoft will be able to improve the service. And if you think of it, this is just all the things we can do when it comes to Copilot for Microsoft 365. There are other Copilots. For example, there is a Copilot for Azure. Azure Copilot. There is a Copilot for GitHub. There is a Copilot for sales and service. Like you can, for example, include your sales solutions or service support desk solutions and add that information into Copilot as well. And as you can see on my screen here, there is something called Security Copilot. Now, Security Copilot is something that you will have to separately purchase Here we see, for example, security.copilot.com or something, or securitycopilot.microsoft.com. I don't have access to this because this is a separate service that you have to pay for, and it allows you to use Copilot with products like Intune, Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, and Microsoft Sentinel. So also quite a cool thing, but it is security Copilot here. I get a question here like, how does Azure Copilot work? Azure Copilot allows you to communicate with Azure, and it allows you to ask questions about things that you have inside your Azure environment. So, and it will allow you to get sort of reports, for example, or cost information on the resources you're running in Azure. It's not like at this point you can go say to Copilot like, hey, create a virtual machine like that. It may in the end allow you to create for you the script and the templates to do so, but still you will have to manually go and push that button to do it. That's the only thing I can say about Azure Copilot at the moment. But this is, when it comes to managing Copilot, this is all there is. Well, and now I start to sound like Steve Jobs. There is one more thing, and that one more thing has to do with Teams. Now, if you want to have Teams summarize meetings for you while the meeting is still underway, right? Then you will have to record the meeting in order to allow that function to work. However, there is one Copilot related setting in Teams. Admin.teams.microsoft.com is here. This is the Teams Admin Center. And then I think in meetings, if you go into meeting policies, and then let's take the global. What? You should not sign me out. I don't like that. No. What? Let's sign me in again then. Oh, okay. Apparently, apparently it wants me to sign in again. So let's just do that. Here we go. Well, yeah. Stay sign in. Okay, here we are. So it's again, if I go to meetings and then I go to meeting policies and I want to go to global settings, then if I scroll down a little bit further here, we do have Copilot here, and here we can go and say, hey, do you want Copilot to do that special thing about getting transcriptions and everything? And here we can have a setting that says, hey, what is Copilot allow us to do? Do we need this transcript for that or not? For example, right? So there is different features and recordings, let's say. So do we need to record them or not as part of that Copilot part, right? So here we have a meeting of scheduling meetings, joining the lobby, engagements are here, content sharing is here, and then recording and transcription. Does Copilot need that? That is basically what we can add into that. This is the only Copilot related setting that I have found anywhere in Microsoft 365 that is that is other than this what we have here in the Copilot view in admin.microsoft.com. Now, when it comes to managing Copilot, this is what we have, right? And then we have one more thing, and that is we want to also able to monitor the Copilot adoption. And if we think about Copilot adoption, we want to be monitoring whether or not our users are in fact using Copilot. And in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center, here under reports, we have an adoption score view. And the adoption score view allows us to go in and for example, show information about, what kind of things users have been doing. So here we can create an adoption score? Well, this is, wait a minute. So I want to go into, oh man, I want to go into my adoption score. And here, oh, I need to refresh the page. I'm missing things. Therefore, I was a little bit off. Here we are. So here you can, for example, see, hey, are people actually using AI assistants, right? And if they are, you get a certain score on how good or how well they are doing. And obviously, the more people are using Copilot, the better your score is. But if that score goes a little bit, is not too high, then yeah, you may want to go and create more awareness for your users to understand what what Copilot has to offer and how it can help users become more productive or creative or quick in their things. So this is one score we can monitor. There's also a usage reporting. And here we can also, for example, see that there is a Copilot usage report which shows information about the readiness. So we have, for example, a license assigned. I only have one license here. So we have how many apps have been used for Copilot, right? So to get the most out of Copilot, you need to have Teams and Outlook and so on. And here we can see some readiness details if there's any, and the actual usage. So do we see people use Copilot when they have that license assigned? And here we can see, okay, how many users do we have? How many users are active when it comes to the different applications here? We can check out the trend. So in my case, obviously, it's like a small environment, and I only have one user in my organization and one Copilot license, but still something we can do. Also, we can, again, schedule those email messages. Like, hey, maybe, get information about Copilot because it's nice to show, right? You can even go and create Windows 11 notification messages. So we can say, hey, you know what? Copilot is available. Go click here and start using it, right? And we can start sending this to people for certain days and how often. So here we have a couple of extra capabilities of, pushing out a Copilot in your organization. If you would ask Microsoft, you should actually go through a complete Copilot adoption team where you will have like Copilot heroes in your organization, like people that have been trained to use it and they can help out colleagues and you use meetings to for example share think about prompt engineering and get better prompts, because the better your prompts are, the better Copilot is going to be for you. One of the things that Microsoft warns us about is that if Copilot is new, many people will start using it, but after a few weeks or maybe months, people tend to go back into their old-fashioned working habits. And what we need to do is we want to make sure that our users are actually changing the way that they work based on AI tools, because then you will have more and more and more advantage of the solution. Now, that is basically how we can get started with Microsoft 365 Copilot. Maybe at a later stage, if you think, okay, now we have Copilot up and running, at a later stage, you may also want to go, but that's optional. You want to go and say, hey, I now want to extend my Copilot's reach. And what I mean with that is that, by default, obviously, we only have Microsoft-related stuff in Copilot, like messages, calendar items, people, emails, posts, and everything. But what if you do have, let's say, third-party solutions? And what if you want to, for example, also have that Microsoft graph here and also that semantic index, reach for that data in third-party locations and also take that data into account. Whoa, that was not supposed to happen. Into account when we work with Copilot. So it's more than just the Microsoft graph. Now we can extend this. So Microsoft actually allows extending Copilot to extra locations. So if we go into Copilot once more, then we do have a way, and obviously I forgot I forgot where, because here we have like, this is just the internet. But there is also ways for us to go and add extra resources to it, extensibility capabilities to connect to extra applications, for example. I think that is something that we do in Teams. So yeah, with that, we actually come to an end of today's session. Hopefully you have found this session informative. Thank you so much for joining me. Yeah, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for spending 2 hours of your precious time with me. Hopefully we will meet each other in real life sometime, maybe at one of the courses that I'm delivering for either Microsoft or Glasspaper in Norway, for example. So for now, thank you so much. Ha det bra. And well, enjoy the rest of your day. And if you have weekend now, enjoy your weekend. Goodbye.